Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Podcast Strikes Back. My name is George and you're listening to our full spoiler review of Avengers Endgame with the boys Connor.
Hello.
Benny.
Hi there.
So guys, full disclaimer here, we're getting into spoilers. If you haven't seen the film, go check out our non-spoiler review where we haven't ruined anything. But in this one, we're getting into the details for all those who've seen it at home. There's so much to discuss in this film. I have been waiting for this review maybe about 18 months. I think it's basically all I have to live for, this podcast and getting into the deets. So I'm very excited. I guess we should just kick off from the first scene. And also we should kick off with some scotch.
Yeah, because we finally made it. Let's have a little bit of a celebration.
We had some scotch on our Infinity War review, so tradition holds. First scene,
Give me a second. Jesus.
Different type of opening sequence to what we got in Infinity War.
Yeah.
Which was what I found like very, not necessarily refreshing, but an interesting choice from the get-go.
It was as dark as the intro to Infinity War.
Yeah, but more sort of understated, I would say. More of, let's just cheers on this.
Cheers. Sorry.
Cheers, boys.
God, right.
We made it. Made it to the end game.
Clink.
So we are, of course, talking about the movie opening with the very expected Clint Barton's family all being dusted.
Yeah, I think we talked about that.
That was one of your theories.
That was day one. Like when we got
came
out
up
of
with
Infinity
it before
War.
anyone else in the world.
Pretty sure we did.
We talked about that.
Documented.
Talked about that. Like as soon as we got out of Infinity War, I remember us kind of going through our predictions and stuff, and that was like on the top of the list. Like it's going to open up with his family getting dusted, and him going to the dark side, and that was expected, but also really well executed, I think.
What's interesting for me, just from an editing or a filmmaking perspective, is we start off with Infinity War, and you've got that Thanos theme, and like we've got the typical Marvel sort of intro with the the credit sequence or whatever you call it. And I love this one, how it just starts off with the bow and arrow, and there's no preamble, you're straight into it. And I thought creatively that was very, very interesting. And I was immediately like, okay, they're flipping Infinity War on its head. They're doing something different.
I felt like that was the exact same as Infinity War, really.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, like they started out...
But all those aforementioned reasons that I mentioned, just in the tone... They
started out with the Marvel kind of banner coming up.
Not in this one. Not in this one.
No, I was saying they had already kind of entered into the fray. I feel like they did the very similar thing in that, as soon as that Marvel thing was out of the way, they were right into it. Like it was...
See, I feel like they're polar opposites in terms of the way you can do a scene. One's got featuring a lot of characters we know, very gruesome as well with Loki and Heimdall dying. And in this one, it was just like kind of quiet, and like his family disappears, and he's kind of like it's.
They were both very. I mean, like in my sense, that I guess I'm saying that they're both very somber. They're both right into it.
This it felt like an epilogue to the last film almost. So like it carried directly on from that
like
extended
Ragnarok,
last scene of,
for example,
everyone just dying.
But that's exactly what Infinity War did. They just took the epilogue to Ragnarok.
But I don't think the tone matches up. Ragnarok's tone...
It very much does, because the last thing that you see in Ragnarok is this ship ominously coming up.
It's almost a humorous beat, though.
Yeah.
In Ragnarok.
Did you really feel... Really?
Yeah.
I got very ominous vibes out of that.
Yeah, because Loki's like, I think everything's going to be okay. And it's like, no.
Yeah, and I think we talked about it in our Infinity War review as maybe those two didn't match up.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Yeah, anyways. Yeah.
There's a lot of movie to get through here.
This should be the least controversial thing that we talk about.
It should be, Connor. It should be.
Yeah.
Connor's like, they're the same scene. It's the same shit.
Remember when Heimdall dies in the first scene of Endgame?
Yeah. Anyways, I really liked that scene. I mean, it did feel a little expected in this because we had talked about it so much, but at the same time, as I said before, really well executed.
And I think with this whole film, it's like there were a lot of things, we did expect time travel. We got time travel. We did expect quantum realm. We got quantum realm.
Time jump.
It's the handling and the execution of it that makes it so worthwhile to watch. So we knew that scene was going to happen.
There's so much to tackle here.
Just like Jeremy Renner's reaction and performance in that scene sold it for me.
Yeah.
So even though I knew it was going to happen, it still made it effective.
And
Okay.
then we jump straight to Tony Stark and Nebula in space, and Captain Marvel just shows up to save him, and that plot thread is resolved immediately.
So did you like the fact that she kind of just showed up?
I don't retrospectively have an issue with it. I think plenty of people might, because the marketing focused so heavily on Tony stuck in space, and a lot of people theorized on that, because they didn't have much to go on, so thinking that's going to be a big plot point. Given the way the rest of this movie goes, I have no problem with them just kind of nipping it in the bud and getting rid of it.
Yeah, I mean, like that. In that sense, I totally get why they did it. If they had spent a little bit more time on that, I think that it would have just eaten into time that was better spent on other areas.
You really need to have seen the Captain Marvel post-credit scene, though, because as opposed to what I thought, that wasn't a scene in this film.
Yeah, at all.
That was her actual introduction to the Avengers.
Yeah.
That 30-second
crazy.
scene. Yeah, and then I mean, that must be how she went to find Stark. So.
Marvel has had a history of doing that. I don't know why, but I just didn't think that they would do that for this. I mean, there's that really pivotal scene where Loki takes the Tesseract as Selvig, which is it's a big plot point when you.
Yes,
really
like
think
Loki's
about it.
alive.
Yeah, but I mean, like
he's
that
on
is.
Earth, or...
That is like nothing compared to, I think, this, where maybe a little bit. I just didn't think that they would pull that off with Endgame, but they did. And I think that it's probably a good idea. When
it's
I think
efficient
about it.
as all hell, man. Just
It really is.
between those two movies, it's like you get everything you need.
And I mentioned this in the non-spoiler version. They are unapologetic about the fact that this is This is for the people that have been along the journey the entire way. Like this movie is designed for people that have watched all the films. Apart from Hulk.
That's the thing. So just quickly, because this is ostensibly a sequel to Infinity War, and imagine if you just watch those two movies.
It wouldn't work.
Because you just suddenly, he's in space where he was, and then a Super Saiyan flies up and
there's
is
so
like,
many-
it's all right, I'm here.
But can you
there's
tell
no
me
introduction.
how did Captain Marvel know their location?
They got the beacon from
Nick Fury.
Fury, yeah.
Yeah, but how did Nick Fury know that was the location of the ship?
Oh, how did they find Stark? Yeah.
Now, how did Captain Marvel know to go to that location? Like, refresh my
location?
memory. To go to where Tony Stark and the Nebula are in
that's
the
what I just
spaceship.
said. Yeah.
So
they didn't explain that at all.
so that for me on this first viewing, I was like, I just went with it. I was like, there's just so much going on. You just kind of on the second viewing, I was like, okay, that seems like a thread that could have maybe just kind of slip in a line and kind of smooths it out and gives some kind of justification. Like in the second viewing, it kind of was like she just turns up. And
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe there's something I've missed. Maybe there's something we've all missed.
I don't think there is. I mean, I'm just trying to think if there's anyone that could have.
She's real fast. She
Rocket
probably
is
just
on Earth,
flew
and Rocket
around a lot.
knows that they took that ship.
Yeah, I mean, he probably could have tracked the Benatar somehow.
Where is Rocket? All right, wait.
Rocket was left on Earth.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was. So he knows how to find the ship. So I suppose that's probably the most
That's all you need, right?
reasonable
That's-
explanation.
Checks out, I feel.
Sure, but it's sort of like you're sort of connecting the dots rather than
Yeah.
them actually spelling
Totally.
it
Well, I
out
mean,
for you.
this movie is hella efficient. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think it works thematically, but I mean, if you're willing to take the time to kind of figure it out, I suppose it works. See that I don't know that was the best way to do that. I think there should have been at least a line. There should have been a line after that being like, "Thanks for helping me find the ship." Or like, because at the moment,
totally.
the way that thematically works is that it just feels like she stumbled upon the ship.
Yeah, and in addition to that, we lose any scene in between these two movies where she's introduced to the Avengers, where they're like, "Who are you? What do you do?" Like, where have
They
you
do
been?
a couple of alluding to that, and I think they did a one-liner that is really interesting, which is, "Where have you been all these years?" And it's a really good point. Be like, you're not the only ones that fucking need help.
Love that.
It is such a simple line, but it doesn't feel. I guess I'm trying to think of the word, like, when they just give the one-liners, like, "Oh, this can do this now."
Little throwaway exposition.
Yeah. It's the "thank you for smoking" line.
Mm.
It doesn't feel like that, right? It just
It feels like, that
legitimate-
does justify
Yeah,
it.
you're like, oh, good point.
Then we get what I think is a pretty harrowing scene of Tony Stark just absolutely fucked up and very angry at everyone
Oh
I
man,
love
and
that.
that's where for me I was like Civil War, man. Like I felt like in Infinity War we didn't get enough Civil War.
Yeah.
But in this one I was like, holy fuck, man. Like this is masterfully done. Like we've got threads tying in from this film, from that film, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Thor Ragnarok,
It
know,
wouldn't
and
have
it's like
felt as impactful
oh.
if he was just coming back and like he was all good with Steve.
Yeah.
Like it makes sense for that character to be like, no, fuck all of you.
And it makes Civil War a better film because like everyone's, at the end of Civil War, it's kind of like a little bit flaccid. It's like, oh, they're all friends again, I guess. But in this one, it's like, no, they've got differences of opinion. And when Tony Stark's going, we should have an armor around the world and, fuck your freedoms.
Awesome throwback to Ultron.
Man.
Really awesome throwback.
I got such a kick out of that.
Oh yeah, I really liked the dynamic of the group. It kind of also highlights why they need Steve as this person that's not willing to walk away from the fight. I mean, that it kind of gave him something to do, I suppose, in terms of making sure the team stays the course.
Also, yeah, like a little, like Tony, like you were going to call him, then you didn't call him. And he was still fighting on Earth. You didn't come back and take him with you. Like, calm down a bit. But obviously, he was in a very bad place.
Yeah.
Very, very.
It's not about whether he's
up.
right or wrong. It's more about whether
kind of like
his emotional reaction to losing.
He is a little irrational, and I liked that.
But then we get the first giant left turn in this movie, which is when they go immediately confront Thanos.
Yep.
It was like that that scene in Nowhere where the Gamora just kills Thanos.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh,
That can't be it.
Okay, cool. Except it was it. I mean, I thought that was a really cool way to go. That is not what I expected to happen. Did either of you have an inkling that they were going to just kill him right off the bat?
So I said this on the pod a couple of weeks ago. I didn't think it would be that soon. I thought it'd be at the end of the first third. I said they'd go confront him and either he kills a couple of them and stuff goes real bad, or they kill him and the rest of the movie's them trying to do other stuff that I had no idea.
Yeah, I was sort of questioning whether there was going to be multiple Thanoses in this, or like, are they going to go back to the same Thanos? I was sort of questioning that. But seriously, man, to get a decapitation scene in the MCU is crazy. And
well, they just cut off his arm, like right off the bat.
As soon as that happens, you're like, Thanos is dead.
Yeah.
This is
and he's
intense.
kind of, it's a bit like in a certain way, he has this vulnerability to him, in his presentation where he's got half of his face charred. Like you almost, there's a level of empathy to this character that was, comes across, extracted from Infinity War. That
you didn't put up much of a fight. You didn't stand a chance against these guys.
It's so interesting how they did that.
I think, and we mentioned this in our non-spoiler review, and this is probably a good time to mention to Zenny, which is that there were a couple of scenes in this that we thought that the CGI was a little bit distracting in terms of just not quite good enough. This was one of those scenes. I thought Thanos didn't look as good as he did in Infinity War. Not necessarily when he was talking to the Avengers, but the scene before that when he's going and picking out those weird fruit.
Oh, you didn't think that looked good?
That it looked weird. No, like I remember the bag that he put the fruit in looked decidedly last minute. Like it was weird. I was like, this. It was a moment where it took me out just a little bit. Where I was like, I think that's just because of my expectation of anything to do with Thanos is like next level good. And then this just seemed a little bit, I guess, rushed.
I kind of loved that scene and how you didn't see the Infinity Stones in his gauntlet, and it was. But I agree more so like, in terms of Thanos' CG polish in the dialogue. I didn't think he looked in that particular scene itself. Yeah, I don't think he looked as good as anything looked in Infinity War. So I'll semi agree with you, but I just think it's in another part of that scene.
Yeah, I think just the entire thing was like, and I got over it very quickly because the substance of the scene far outweighs the execution of the effects. But there was a little bit of a that's weird.
And I really like once they've killed him, how already up to this point they've really set Nat as like the heart of this mission. Yeah, like she's the one who's so determined to kind of get this thing going, and how devastated she is already.
Yeah, she almost lost more than anyone. I mean, Steve has already lost his entire world at least once. I mean, Barton until that point we don't know. Everyone else, has lost stuff, but it just feels like for her, this is like everything.
Yeah, and that narrative thread follows through. Is there anything else about that Thanos scene? You know what I really liked about that Thanos scene? It's like he comes in and he's got the bowl of water and he puts the pinch of salt in there.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like this, like what I loved about this film is the contrast between the two lines of the two Thanos, which are quite distinct from each other. And I feel, and we'll talk about that a bit later, but I felt like this guy had kind of done everything that he needed to do and he was just living this really low resource, no impact on the world kind of thing. He was just eating vegetables that he grew and it's like that Thanos character as a villain, for all the years we've been talking about the MCU having weak villains, he's one of the best of all time. And I feel like those opening scenes, it's so small, but it added to the character. And it's effortless storytelling in my opinion.
Yeah, it really hammers home that he's not some megalomaniacal madman. Like he was doing what he thought was his mission.
Yeah.
And once it was done, he had no cause to do any more harm,
Yeah.
Which is very poetic.
And then slammed to black 5 years later, very strung out, like very slow moment.
The 5, and you're like, I know what they're doing, but I still like that they're taking their time doing it.
No,
5 days later.
I don't want to just go through scenes chronologically because I think that's boring.
I don't.
I want to talk about like major stuff that we want to kind of sink our teeth.
But I think that's a major
the 5-year jump.
I think
is
that's
a pretty major thing, right?
part.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fuck it. Let's
Like
do it.
that for me. That's like the carpet. Pulled underneath you.
That's when the setup of this movie that we got none of from the trailers is like, boom, that's what this is.
Because
so I don't think any of this that wasn't one of the kind of real left turns that I thought of because we all at one point or another hypothesized that this was going to be years later.
But I thought at that stage in the film they'd established the timeline. I thought that then to have that initial 20-30 minute sequence and then do a time jump,
it's cool.
That for me was the surprising part.
Yeah.
I'm like, I could have imagined to have seen the Hawkeye scene and then it's like, boom, we're X many years later. But it's we're sort of seeing it sort of cut together. It's not as quite linear as Infinity War. And then, I didn't expect it to be 5 years.
Well, it puts a weird kind of
none of us did.
jolt.
We pegged it to be a lot.
You said
shorter than
3
that.
years, I believe.
I thought it was 10 years, I think. At any rate, it doesn't really matter. But I think for me, the biggest impact of that was that it was a jolt. Like we had jumped into the action. We're going to go after Thanos. This is the mission. We can't fuck up. Let's go. And then they chop off his head and then it's done. And you're like, oh, okay. And then it's like 5 years later and it's right back. The pacing has gone right back to square one. And now we're on this kind of slow burn. And you're like, okay, like with Infinity War, it was, we're going to step up to the action and we're going to like keep our pedal to the metal as much as we can throughout the entire film. This one was like, nope, we're going to step back. We're going to have our slow burn onwards. And I thought that was really interesting, a really interesting way to do that.
So then we not to go through this whole thing chronologically, but we do after this jump catch up with all the characters and see where they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was an interesting way of doing it. Like they just kind of did this like little, this is where you are, this is where you are, this is what's happening here.
Yeah. So whatever Ant-Man gets out of the thing, he's been gone for 5 hours. That's interesting.
Oh, wait. The rat is the MVP. You leant over to me in the
MVP. Yeah, the rat.
That rat is the MVP.
In the van, crawls over the equipment and out pops Ant-Man.
To, click the right button. And
Get that. Why is that motherfucker not on the poster?
I hope we find
seriously.
out. I hope there should be like a short film or a comic spin-off or something that shows that rat's really important.
Is there a rat man?
There may be.
I'm sure there is.
There is
in
now.
the archives, I'm sure there is. Just one little thing, just a nitpick. His first nitpick for me is I wish we'd seen like Steve Rogers. His hair looked exactly the same. I liked how Romanov had a different hairdo. It's back to the wigs. But I wanted to see that weathering. I want to see that weathering. Like I want to see that time lapse. And I felt like with Romanov, I felt a sense of time lapse. With Steve, I would have liked to maybe feel it a bit more in his presentation.
I feel like it would have been weird if Steve suddenly had long hair. Like that doesn't it's
maybe even a few grays or just something to. It didn't have to. I don't know what it would be, but just something in his presentation that was a little bit different that would have made that time lapse. Feel like lean into it more and make. Oh wow, it's been 5 years. Like with Romanov, I was like, wow, okay, she's changed. She's withdrawn from the world. With Steve, I felt like it was kind of like business as usual.
I like that though. I kind of like him as the stalwart sentinel kind of character.
Sure, and that's probably the creative decision they made.
But on to the ones who did change, we got Hulk pretty quick.
Yeah,
here.
Professor Hulk.
they
Hulk,
just-
Banner, whatever he is.
What is the name of that character? Is it Professor Hulk?
I don't know. This is for the movies. Like there's so many different versions of merging of consciousnesses. This for the purpose of the movie, this is just like Banner. They call him Banner.
And that's when I fell in love with Hulk for the first time.
Yeah.
Like that opening scene, and you've got such great CG work on this character. And then doing the, want a picture, it's green, and then Ant-Man, oh man, I just got such a kick out of that scene.
Yeah, and you immediately get the sense of where Banner is, like in his headspace. Like he is at peace for the first time since his accident, which happened before the MCU started.
Yeah.
I didn't even really think about that. It's true.
He's so zen. Like he's got a smile on his face for most of this movie, even though everything sucks. And it's such a
his scene where he's kind of going, "Arr, arr." It's like this perfect little moment of like he's completely different.
not the guy.
character.
He's not a rage monster.
Yeah,
it's so good.
Ruffalo was like, I'm not sure if it's in Infinity War or just most films that he's been in, but he has this interesting sort of fidgety way he holds his hands, and he wasn't doing that as much in this. And just like that visual cue was enough to say, oh, something's major happened to this character, and he's evolved, he's changed. And I don't know, man, just the presentation was so on point for me. I loved the way that he looked.
Yeah. The effects team did a great job on him.
You really
for this
spectacular
one.
job on him, didn't they?
Yeah.
Especially just the facial capture.
Oh man, it was
so
perfect resemblance of Ruffalo. And he does cool little details with his lip, and it's just like, wow, that feels so real and human, organic.
Yeah.
So, what did we think about the Rogue Barton character? What are they? Ronan is
Yeah.
That shot where he's introduced, that single shot where it's rotating around them.
Tokyo.
That's one of the best shots we've ever seen in the MCU. I feel
That was pretty cool.
I thought that was just like, that's filmmaking, man. Like the way this scene could be done is, cut, chung, 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 close up of the sword, cut around the action. But in this was like, no, we're watching this scene play out, and it's all one shot. And I was always impressed with those.
So yeah, I liked how that there had obviously been progression in terms of like where these characters have gone. Romanoff by far seems the most, I guess, affected by this. Maybe
I would disagree. I would disagree.
With the exception of Thor, I suppose.
One of the biggest surprises of this film.
Huge. And I mean, the biggest thing about that is that they really don't change him throughout the movie. He is Fat Thor for the entire thing.
It's fat mental breakdown Thor.
Yeah.
Which we didn't get any hint of going into this.
Nothing.
So
Nothing.
that was a big swing. Like they just reveal him in his little place with Korg and Meek, playing video games, drinking beers, and being fat as
Playing
fuck.
Fortnite,
So,
swearing at kids.
Did you feel like that might have been a couple beats too long?
I was thinking to myself, wow, this is ballsy. The first time I saw it, I was like, this is a ballsy move, and I hope they nail it, because this could fall flat on its face. Like Fat Thor, we've never seen anything like that in the MCU.
It's almost like it was on the verge of too comical.
It was very broad, and he was very broad. And for a character who was such a dramatic linchpin in the last film, it was such a big change. But he has done that broad before in Ragnarok, in all fairness. So I think they really did have the confidence that he could carry it, and I feel like he really did. Like he is mostly a comedic character, but he does have those moments of drama really shine through.
It's got the drama and the woe, like the hopelessness that he has in his life, like the expectation and how he hasn't met that expectation, and he's just kind of withdrawn.
Place. Yeah,
he's just withdrawn from society and he's hiding away, and it was so interesting and makes me fall in love with Thor even more.
Exactly.
He wasn't one of my favorites, and now he's one of my absolute favorites in the MCU.
Easily, yeah.
And fantastic to get Korg and Meek in this.
Yes, and Valkyrie.
Just
and New Asgard, which is something from the comics, which is really cool to see in this.
And I like the visual of Hulk in the back of the truck. In this little
Hulk
little
and
bowl.
Rocket, yeah.
And
kind of
the
assembling the team together, I suppose.
Yeah, the great shot of Hulk just talking to Thor and being like, fuck, what has happened to this poor guy? And, there's that shot of Hulk and Korg standing there, and Thor's like just a head. He's so tiny next to these two guys. Just so different for him.
So I think a major component of this film is obviously Tony Stark. And I thought that where they took his character. I did not see that coming. Not a million miles off.
In terms of the setup or the journey?
The journey, yeah, sure, but the setup, like the fact that he, you see him and oh fuck, he's got a kid. I mean, that for me was the most interesting, one of the most interesting kind of from left field moments of that entire film because. And it immediately occurred to in my mind, I'm like, oh fuck, he's got something to fight for in this timeline, which meant that like originally I thought that they were going to just try and revert everything back. So he's going to be like, no, I can't lose. I can't sacrifice my kid. That I thought that added such a cool and unexpected element to this entire character arc.
Yeah, he doesn't want to just reverse it back to the way things was because his life has flourished in a different kind of way.
And little Morgan Stark. Props to her. She does a great job in this movie of selling that relationship and everything that's at stake.
There's some, kind of on-screen, father-daughter things that seem like, oh, those are two actors that are doing their thing, and I thought that they did a really good job of selling the relationship.
Yeah, you have no doubt that Robert Downey Jr. is great with kids in real life. I think would be a big help.
I thought also the line that really encapsulated that scene was, Cap going, we got a second chance here. And he's like, this is my second chance.
Yeah.
And that really kind of, it was another layer to this, as you were saying, Con, it's another layer to it that makes this time travel thing a little more interesting than just like, we're going back and we're reversing everything. It's like, no, we've got stakes in this timeline as well. And that for me was adding a layer of complexity that was very satisfying. I love how Tony Stark, the next scene, like he just figures shit out. Don't question it. He's got to figure out time travel, and boom, like time travel will happen.
Yeah, some people had an issue with him and his nanotech in the last film. I'm like, I think they made that huge leap so that they could make this infinitely huger leap.
Oh, by the way, I solved
time travel. Yeah.
And then the bit where he just
leaves, he didn't try before.
He sits on the chair and he kind of goes like this, and it's kind of like, is this a blooper or
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he sold the enormity of it though. Yeah. It was great.
And I do. I know we're going through this chronologically for better or worse, but the Gwyneth Paltrow scene on the couch where she says, my mistake is not letting you do your thing in a way, and like trying to fight that. And it's kind of like this partnership. Well, like one of her, whatever sentiment that she was saying is like this interesting kind of like he needs to let him fly.
Yeah, I think she was far more at peace with what he had to do.
Yes.
I was so weirded out because in my mind we were still talking about them reverting it back to what it was, and that to me was like, why is she so chill with this? Like I don't understand. And it wasn't until, and this is what I really wanted to get into, because this is something that I'm still trying to work through, which is that the mechanics of time travel, and
time heist.
Time heist, yeah. And I think that they did a really good job of it. They did a better job, or I guess almost a better job than Looper, because Looper did an explanation which was basically, don't look too much into it. It's not going to make sense. And they kind of did a little bit of that. They're like, this is enormously complicated. We don't know what's going to happen type thing. But they also set some of the parameters and ground rules, and they argued for it as well. And I thought that was really cool. It was very meta. As well, like
they name check a dozen other time travel movies.
Time Cop.
Yeah, which I thought it was really cool. I'm still not 100% sold on the mechanics of how it's meant to have worked.
Yeah, I don't know how well it'll hold up to scrutiny, but I can't wait for Reddit to tell me one way or another.
Exactly. Yeah, because the theory sounds brilliant. If they go in, just nab the stones, and then as was mentioned before, replace them, then that could be the same continuity, that could be the same timeline.
Nothing would change, yeah.
But they did go back and
change
quite a bit. And
so my thinking towards that was based on what the Sorcerer Supreme kind of said, or the Ancient One, is that yes, they create branching timelines when they go in and fuck all that stuff up, but as soon as Steve returns the stones to exactly where they took them from, then I guess those will just get erased and everything will go back to normal.
So what I got from that was actually something different. So what she said was that what you've done is you've effectively, either way, you've split it two ways. and this universe will continue on with your changes, and the other universe is already set. You're just
Well, no,
going
they
back to
don't.
finish.
And in that second universe, they don't have all the Infinity Stones.
That was the big thing,
Yeah.
which is that, if you just take all the Infinity Stones out of the equation, then we're fucked. Like, as in, you wouldn't have made it as far as you did without the Infinity Stones anyways. So you're dooming us to a fate as bad as what you've created anyways. So that them putting back the stones is not them not affecting this second timeline. It's them putting back the stones is making sure that second timeline can exist, period. That was what I got out of it.
Yeah,
but there's still a split.
But I would say it erases the divergent path from existence, because that's kind of what her diagram showed, I feel. Like,
Yeah,
the
and then
diagram
it's split
showed that.
and then he grabs
it
the time stone and puts it back in, and then
it's
it
gone,
disappeared,
yeah.
and then there's the one timeline.
But again, I don't understand how that divergent time path goes away, because presumably all the changes that they made in the past are going to affect the present. And what's more is that's apparent, sort of, in the kind of, I guess, the final scene of the entire film, which is that a change in the past obviously has affected the present.
There's a number of ways to look at this, and I need to think about this a bit more, and I'm not 100% sure on everything, but for me, it's almost like one of those time mechanics where it's one timeline and everything had to happen in this fashion, and
it was going to happen either way.
It was going to happen in this fashion.
I don't think it'll hold up over the 22 movies if you really analyze it, but I think the idea was that, yes, Captain America, Steve Rogers, had always gone back to that time.
Yeah.
And perhaps just lived a quiet life.
Yes.
And it doesn't hold up.
The major problem with that is that Peggy Carter.
Yeah, like I said, it doesn't hold up.
children.
But she could have had him with him. You could say when he last
Yeah,
saw
that's very
her
true.
in Winter Soldier, she sort of had dementia. So who knows? Maybe she was just really confused about what was going on there.
Yeah.
I think that actually could be a real big key to this. But yeah,
That's very interesting.
Like I said,
Wait,
I
in
think
Winter
there's
Soldier, did she say that she had children? Because now I'm thinking about it. Her niece, who Captain America, that would be an awkward conversation.
Yeah.
that's one of the big keys that not all of this was planned from the start.
Yeah. But like, I mean, that little piece there, if you think about it, it's her niece. So that would be her sister or brother's kid, not her kid.
Yeah.
Apart from maybe the Winter Soldier, which maybe she didn't say that she had kids.
In Winter Soldier, one of the only things she says that was the thing is she says she married a man who Steve Rogers saved from when he did that big prison break in the first movie. Of all the prisoners of war, she said, yeah, he saved this many people, one of whom would become my husband.
Yeah.
So whatever, but
I mean, you could retcon that to being
exactly. I feel like really all of this is open to being retrofitted this way. It's no more egregious than any other retcon they've done in the MCU.
I mean, no, it's not, is it?
But
I suppose that could actually make sense then.
Yeah.
But I mean, then you would have to contend with the fact that she created S.H.I.E.L.D. knowing that what S.H.I.E.L.D. would become. And there's all sorts of basically the biggest issue is that final use of time travel. Is him staying in the past. But for me is the biggest issue.
But fuck, it was worth it. That was the only way I ever wanted that story to end.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous, isn't it? Like
absolutely had to
thematically
be
it
that.
works 100%.
Everyone was always saying Captain America dies in this movie. I'm like, that's not where his story goes, man. That's not it.
I mean, yeah, it's a bit of a weird one.
The way, if you watch Avengers 1, when I'm watching that, I'm thinking all this other stuff's happening simultaneously in Endgame.
Yeah.
That's not a divergent timeline.
Yeah, so
it's happening
Back to
in
the
that
Future
timeline.
Part 2, except
Exactly.
different rules. sort
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't know
And I love
how
that thought.
watertight it is, but actually I don't think it's meant to be super watertight, and it's more about the characters and just having fun with time travel.
And they get around it a bit by only kind of interacting with events that happen outside of the parameters of what we see in those films. All of the Avengers Battle of New York stuff happens after
And also,
that movie.
I think one of my favorite of those types of scenes is Captain Rogers fighting himself.
Oh,
Fuck,
which is I
brilliant.
can do this all day, and he's just,
yeah.
what a fantastic
Yeah.
So
and
good.
That for me is kind of
Such
that
sassy Captain America. I love it.
that for me is such a wonderful indication of how that character has changed. Like, he seems so kind of peppy in the first couple of appearances in the MCU, whereas in this one he's
more well-rounded, isn't he?
far more well-rounded.
Yeah.
He's more of a deep
More of a
character.
human, yeah. He swears a bit. He
Yeah.
checks out his own ass.
Yeah.
He's a dude.
Oh man, that's America's ass. That
is America's. That's my favorite line of the fucking film.
Just spot on, man.
Yeah.
Really excellent. Yeah. It was cool to see like how they integrated Hydra into that as well. Awesome,
man.
like him going like, "Hail
Frank,
Hydra."
yeah, Frank Grillo and Kaylan Mulvey showing up in that elevator scene. So brilliant.
It's like
With
it's Crossbones.
Agent Sitwell as well, who's one of the longest kind of running MCU characters. Like he's been in so many different like of the movies and TV shows and stuff.
So one of the most interesting things is that is like a shot for shot of Winter Soldier, him in the elevator fighting everyone.
Yeah.
And it's almost as if like, oh, I know where this is going.
Yeah. I've been here
Obviously-
before.
Yeah, like I know how this is gonna play out. Which obviously it doesn't. I loved how they kind of were like, nope.
So good. And I feel like none of it was diminished by the fact that we knew that they were redoing the Battle of New York from the set photos. We knew Frank Grillo was going to be in the film based on some podcast he did. The bastard. he mentioned he was going to be in it. And he was like, I don't care. I'm never going to be in fucking one of these again.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, thanks, Frank. But yeah, it was all still just such a joy. That was really the most joyous segment of that film for me. Was just that whole Battle of New York kind of reenactment. And the Loki bit. Holy fuck, I love that. When he just grabs the Tesseract, bails.
Yeah.
So, but that's one of the things. Okay, so I'll amend my previous statement. That is a major game changer in terms of the continuity, which means that can't be the
That's
same
true.
continuity.
Yeah, so in my mind, all that stuff would be rewritten technically, but at the same time, I feel like they did want to leave a back door for Loki actually surviving. So it's all so nebulous.
It's so
I don't
bizarre,
know.
isn't
Yeah.
it? Like,
That is the scene. That particular moment puts a hole in my theory that it's all one timeline and had to all happen.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Like what happened there? That's a divergent. You know that.
And I think so does Captain America versus Captain America. Like I guess
I mean, he
thought
could
it
have
was
still thought
Loki,
that was
but yeah,
Loki, though.
But yeah,
Interesting. I'm really keen to see some proper theories on this.
yeah, I'm
because,
trying to think of what could possibly like really change the outcome.
Now, I mentioned in our regular review that I thought there was maybe one too many of the, hey, look at this guy. And I
Which one was it?
do feel like Alexander Pierce showing up was a bit like, why is he
Who's that?
the
Secretary.
World Security Council? Yeah, the secretary guy. What's his fucking name? I had it all
Robert
day
Redford?
yesterday. Robert Redford. Yeah. Again, like
He's
really
looking
cool to see
old,
him.
man.
Yes, but like I don't
You
know if
didn't
that
think
one was
the Ty
necessary.
Simpkins cameo was too egregious?
What was that?
So that there was at the Iron Man
Oh, at the funeral. No, that was great. That made a lot of sense to me.
I just watched
watched that the other day. I fucking love that movie so much.
I love the fact that
And I
he's there.
already knew he was in the movie, so that wasn't a
did you?
surprise. Yeah.
Do you seem a little bit blank?
Oh,
Most
man.
people had no idea who he
I
was.
was like, that's somebody.
That's
And, I'm gonna ask Ben.
I assumed when I first saw that was someone from Shield or something like that. It was like something random. Like it didn't click for me until after the film that was who that was. I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah.
It was so funny. Like, of course he's at his funeral.
What were you just talking about?
Robert Redford.
Robert Redford. Yeah,
Seemed a bit
that to
much.
me, I was like,
'Cause-
why?
But it
I
also
kind of
makes sense
expected-
that he's there.
Well, I kind of expected him to show up in Captain Marvel more than this, and that didn't happen. But it did happen in this, which really surprised me. But less joyous than the other surprise cameos.
yeah.
But on the opposite end of the spectrum, I was so shocked by how emotionally involved I was with Rene Russo's Frigga showing up again, Thor's mother.
Oh, so good.
I
dude,
thought that
that
was
floored me.
wonderful and a really great kind of continuation of that character who had very little to do in those first two films, even though her funeral scene is one of the most touching moments in the whole series, I feel. But yeah, that was just such a beautiful scene that I think more than anything else in the film cemented Thor's working in this film.
and also the theme of there's a really interesting theme in this film of like who you're supposed to be versus who you are, and kind of like being the hero and the sacrifices in your life, and there's some really interesting stuff there, and that was the first scene to really kind of bring that forward to the forefront of the film, and I really latched onto that. I thought it was very powerful, and she kind of like, he's like, I'm from like, she knew he was from the future, and I liked how
love
wise,
that
and she kind
so
of just
much.
like, I'm not going to ask you where you've been, where you're from,
Yeah.
what are you trying to do, but like there's something going on here, and she's just involved in a conversation with her son from a different timeline, and I liked how they handled that, which was like, oh, from the future. No, she's just very calm, very wise, and
Eat
I
a
got a lot
salad.
out of that scene.
Yeah.
And we got Natalie Portman back for
Natalie
a minute.
Portman. So that was my second biggest
That wasn't B-roll?
shock in this
That
film.
wasn't B-roll?
She went to the premiere.
Yeah, that's
So,
true.
I don't know. Maybe some bridges have been mended, but because the first time you see her, she's very far off in the distance. She just kind of turns away from camera. I'm like, okay, they've used her voice. She's not going to appear in this, and then she just kind of shows up. I'm like, holy fuck! But yeah, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if it was some deleted footage from Dark
That's
World.
what I
maybe,
said.
but
I thought it was.
Like
yeah.
there wasn't just like, what are you going to do? Like, say, Natalie Portman, do you want to have 3 seconds of screen
Yeah.
time?
I mean, but at the same time, you get Thunderbolt Ross at the end for about 3 seconds, and how many other people in here for no amount of time.
Yeah, I suppose.
I think now is the important part to talk about, Nebula, Thanos, Gamora, and that whole sequence, because that's where in the film, in my first screening of it, I was like, okay, we're going in a pretty breakneck, like we're about halfway through this film.
I believe your exact words were, "Oh,
so
It's a very
eloquent
George thing to do, isn't
so
it?
eloquent.
yeah." I love that. I love your
I
reaction.
thought that I was kind of like, where's this going to derail? This is going too well for the Avengers. Like, there's a few hiccups along the way, but then we're getting into the meat and potatoes
such
into
a
this
sinking feeling when Nebula fucks it up again by recording everything. It's like, just take out that fucking eye. When he starts getting wise to things, it's like, shit.
But also a very interesting way that they did that. And one of the other things that I thought was really cleverly done is how they brought back Gamora.
Yeah.
Because we all just assumed that she was in the Soul Stone with everyone else.
And we knew that Zoe Saldana was in this film, and we assumed that it would be that version of that character, but no.
But it isn't. And that is a very clever way of, and this is kind of maybe a segue, a very clever way of bringing Zoe Saldana back for Guardians of the Galaxy, but also giving finality to Natasha Romanoff's character, because they didn't bring back Gamora,
yeah.
which means that they're not going to bring back Nat, presumably at all.
Yes, but I can also see people calling it a cheat, and it wouldn't be unfair because they're really having their cake and eating it too by killing Gamora, and then here's Gamora.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they made it work. But what became very obvious to me in this scene is like, we got a different Thanos in this movie.
Yeah.
We've got a guy who is learning from the mistakes of his future self. We've got a guy who's saying he didn't complete the task. We have to go to a new level, and that's revealed later on in the film where he's like, I'm going to fuck everyone up and start a whole new universe. And I was like, wow, from a very measured, very rational sort of Thanos to go to this maniacal entity in this, that for me, I was frothing on. Like, I was just like, Russo brothers, you've done it again.
Yeah.
I thought that contrast was so satisfying and compelling.
Yeah, I thought that his kind of characterization in this, as I said in the non-spoiler, he was so kind of undefeatable but reserved, calm, collected. He was in control. Whereas this one, it just kind of felt like there was a less measured kind of brutality about the character.
Yeah,
he wasn't there.
Literally,
it
wasn't just 50-50 anymore. He's like, I'm gonna kill all you
everyone.
motherfuckers.
Yeah. And I think that made him feel more dangerous in a lot of ways. Like before, you just kind of felt like he was going to do his thing and he's going to move on. Where it felt more unpredictable. You weren't sure, like, he might just fuck people up.
And heaps of people were like, I remember when Infinity War first came out, everyone was like, yeah, Thanos is right. Like there's a rational decision-making process behind him. Whether the ethics of it align with whether the ethics, that's a whole separate thing, but the rational sort of numerical zeros and ones of it makes sense.
I love how this disproves that, though. Like, this movie is basically saying, yeah, rationally that may make sense, but you're not taking into consideration the kind of the human aspect.
Avengers, yeah.
Not even just the Avengers, but the human aspect. No one will ever just move on.
There was that one line where Steve was like, "There's whales in the bay." And I'm like, oh, that's kind of nice though.
Yeah.
That does.
I hope those whales are doing well.
Aw.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
We're all back, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know I'm harping on about it, but that contrast with the two Thani, let's call them.
Yeah.
Man,
Very
I
cool.
can't tell you. That's one of my favorite things they did in this.
Yeah, I totally agree. Okay, so there's a couple things, a couple other things that we need to kind of tick off on this in discussion. God, so many things actually. One of the things that I wanted to touch on was the Vormir sequence. I think it didn't really occur to me until they arrived at Vormir what was going to happen. Like as soon as they arrived at Vormir and it was, I want to say Scarlet. Fuck, Black Widow and and
Black
Hawkeye.
Hawk.
Fuck,
Black Hawkeye.
Black Hawk.
Why? Hawkeye and Black Widow.
Hawk Widow.
When they were there in the ship and they arrive at Vormir, I was like, that it was sudden realization. Be like,
Somebody's going down.
because we know how this has to end.
Can we quickly just talk about just
Not if
why
it's-
don't
not if
they
it's outside
why
of
don't they
Vormir.
land
Never
closer
land.
to the summit?
Just
Both
pull up right at
movies,
the top?
like that's a solid walk. That's going to take a couple hours.
With
Yeah.
Thanos especially, he could have just kept teleporting up
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Presumably, there's something stopping them. But yeah, I
Red
thought,
Skull comes out. He's like, down.
Yeah.
Get your ass back to that sand dune. You've got to do this properly. This is authentic.
I thought that was I was a bit worried that it was going to feel a little less impactful. The Red Skull is showing up again, but I thought that was really cool. I loved the little nod of him saying like, "What was it, Barton, son of James, or something?" He kind of goes, "Well, that was less thematic, wasn't it?"
Edith. I think.
But so this is something that I wasn't sure was going to work because they really kept me guessing with who was going to sacrifice themselves.
Yeah.
There wasn't a little bit of me that was worried. I want to know if either of you got a hint of this. I was really worried that Barton was going to go bad and kill her. There was a part of me in my brain because they had set the character up to do that. I was really hoping
Okay.
they didn't do that, but they had set him up as in like this guy that has lost his way because of the loss of his family.
He's unhinged.
He's
and-
unhinged, and maybe in his head he's thinking, "I got to get my family back. I don't care how I do it." And
Interesting.
I'm going to get back to my family, and he just fucking murks her.
Yeah, it occurred to me.
That scared the shit out of me, and it gave some tension to the
That didn't occur to me, but it's an interesting thought. I knew that it was going to go down that way only because we hadn't seen that scene with Barton with the explosion down the corridor that we'd seen in the trailer. So I knew he was going to survive in that part.
I didn't even think of that.
But it still had a lot of impact, and I was still interested to see how the scene would unfold, not necessarily how it would end.
When they kept doing that, like me, you thing, like them actually fighting each other to throw themselves off this cliff, I thought like, oh my God, they're really going for it. And when he finally jumped off, I was like, holy, like, because obviously it had to be Natasha. That just makes sense. The guy's lost his family. Her family are the Avengers. Like everything was leading up to that. And the fact that he jumped off, I was like,
Wow.
fuck, you got me, Marvel. You got me.
I was I wanted this scene to be as effective as maybe it was for you. I was a little distracted during it, unfortunately. First of all, because and this is just my stupid nerd shit getting in the way, but I'm like, why don't either of them recognize the Red Skull? Like they're high level SHIELD agents. She saw him in the big Winter Soldier info dump about Hydra being in SHIELD. And I'm like, does this not matter to them? That's a big fucking deal. I remember when I saw Infinity War, that was a big deal. And then when they were each trying to jump off the cliff, I'm like, will that work? Doesn't one of them have to throw the other? Or like, this
Technically,
is just, this was just me being concerned about the mechanics of it.
It's got to be a
They
sacrifice.
solved that though. They did
Oh yeah,
solve that.
yeah. When they actually do it, absolutely.
No. They sold it before that, and that is something that did occur to me, and it's one of the reasons that I thought that he might go evil. But it's in the way that the Red Skull actually phrases it. You have to lose something that you love. So it's not that you have to kill something that you love.
Right.
He specifically said you have to lose something.
It's not
that
a
you
sacrifice as per se. It's
Cheeky.
it's
love. Yeah.
losing
So that
something.
I noticed that they did that. So I thought that was
Okay.
very interesting.
And then
There's one oh sorry, go ahead.
Well, just after the film, a friend pointed out to me, hi Matt, that why when Steve goes and returns all the stones, what happened with the Soul Stone?
I was thinking that exact same thing. I was like,
would that
what,
not
did they
be a
go
soul for a
back
stole?
to-
Shouldn't she come back? Or
and then we're missing a wonderful scene.
Oh.
We're missing a wonderful scene where he obviously had to go up and interact with the Red Skull.
Hey, excuse me, Mr. Custodian.
I'd love to see how the Red Skull reacted to him and be like,
That is a one shot we need.
Mr.
Yeah.
Rogers.
The interesting part of this scene is
Oh.
that it's the only scene that I can think of that has a direct parallel to Infinity War. Like there's a lot of like even him waking up in the liquid
Yeah.
or in the
It's a
lake and then
complete
coming
redo.
down.
Yeah.
Like I found that unbelievably satisfying.
Mm.
I thought that was a nice little touchstone.
Yeah. So another thing, God, there's so many things occurring to me at once.
We've
a
come,
missed opportunity at Vormir. This is the last thing I'll say about Vormir. Missed opportunity. The last words that Romanov should have said to Hawkeye is "still friends." I felt like that was a missed opportunity.
Is that
That's a callback to Winter Soldier where
Okay.
they're beating each other up, and
Civil
she goes,
War.
"Oh, sorry, yeah," and she goes, "Still
yeah.
friends."
No, that would have been cool. That would have been cool.
While we're at it, I think we've got one Infinity Stone left. One of my favorites, the Power Stone. I just love that
Quill.
they reenact the beginning of Guardians of the Galaxy,
So
and then
fucking
you
good.
know exactly what the punchline is, and it just
Yeah.
makes you wait so long, and then he's just standing there like a fucking idiot singing that song.
So he's
It
an
was
idiot.
so out of tune. It was so well.
Brilliant! Like
Spot on.
it makes him even more likable, and it makes that movie even better.
Yeah.
Which I love. That's the perfect.
Made me
way
want to
do
go
that.
watch Guardians 1.
Yeah.
Totally, and just be like, yeah, Don Cheadle's over there.
All right, so here's another thing that sorry to fuck around with this time travel.
No,
thing
no,
more.
no. This is this interesting
We have
stuff.
effectively, the whole point is that you can't avoid the snap. The snap has happened, right? So
yes.
they took Thanos out of that timeline and killed him before before he had the gauntlet and snapped.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Which means that by killing him, they should have just reversed this entire thing.
I guess the
So it has to be a split reality. It's not the same.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I guess the only throwaway line they give is that you can't change the future from the past. Like changing the past doesn't change the future.
Professor Hulk says that.
But that's,
Yeah.
I mean, again, that doesn't make sense.
You'll wrap your head in a
Captain
pretzel trying to
Rogers.
think of it. Yeah, I know. But let's just wait for the Reddit scientists to let us know.
I don't think, personally, on the two viewings that I've watched, I don't think they've matched it up well. I don't think the time travel mechanics will work.
No.
And I don't think they actually give a fuck that it doesn't work.
Yeah,
Probably
I think
not.
it's about the characters. It's about the emotion. That's just a vehicle for them to
What a
do some cool
beautiful way
stuff.
for Captain America to go out. Like, I mean, that again, I agree with you. I wouldn't have had it any other way. I might have, but
once they bring everyone back from the dead, Thanos comes out of nowhere and blows up Avengers HQ. I thought they were all fucking dead.
Oh, so did I. I was like,
that first shot of Ant-Man just getting blown away from that window. I was like, holy shit.
So sorry, just so we can do it like just before that, the actual snapping
Oh, yeah.
2.0.
The Infinity Gauntlet, like the Stark Gauntlet, I was frothing on that, man.
Frothing, and then just the fact that Hulk gets up and does that, and like his like
it's his moment.
how much effort he's putting into that snap. I was fucking so like involved in that. I was like, oh yes, fuck.
Yeah. I was in it, man. And I thought like him stepping up to the plate, the design of the gauntlet itself, the struggle, like it worked
So
really well.
So well. I was completely loved that. I was around it. But yeah, that Thanos coming in and just fucking shit up was so goddamn impressive because he just like lays waste to this motherfucker. And in the ads, we saw where one of the battles against him is meant to take place, and I assumed that was on a different planet. And I thought it was really cool. That's actually the rubble of the Avengers,
upstate New York.
Yeah, exactly. Like fuck.
I thought that was Titan.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely love how they just destroyed this thing. Like they had just won, and it felt like halfway through the film where they were like, "Oh yeah, we got everyone back." Like the snap. Like in my head, that snap to bring everyone back was going to be the last thing that happened. But I'm so glad they did it this way.
And the sound design and the visual effects of his gun turrets and missiles taking this place down,
fucking shit up.
I felt like, oh my God, like that actually elicited a physical reaction from me. They really nailed that.
That one last huge explosion was
Yeah.
just
So
He just nuked it. It looked like he nuked the giant.
Yeah.
the fight between the I guess three main Avengers, Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor against Thanos,
Oh,
like that was kind of one of those chills moments. In fact, that onwards was just chill moments.
Yeah.
The Thor grabbing two hammers.
oh.
I think one of the things that kind of it certainly wasn't disappointing, but I just felt like should have had more gravitas behind it was Captain America and the hammer.
You didn't think it did?
I don't know. I built it up so much in my head.
Because I loved how both screenings there was a cheer from the crowd and applause. Like
Yeah, that
for
was-
me, that's a seal of
It was still
approval.
impactful. I just like in my head, I've built it up so much.
I
Oh
love
man,
the shit
the
out of
payoff, man! Like 4 years when Ultron came out, 2015. I mean, that's sublime.
More than that, surely,
That's
right?
sublime. Let's have a look. Age of
That's,
Ultron, 2015.
oh wow,
2012 for the first Avengers.
shit. Yeah, that, I mean, him getting his shield chewed up to shit, that was my indication that he's dead. I just assumed. I think most people did.
I assumed that Iron Man wasn't going to die because we had seen the kniving in Infinity War, and I was like, I was set.
They're not going to do it again.
I
type
was
thing.
set on Steve Rogers dying in this.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I mean, it made perfect sense to me. Like that was going to be like the ultimate, like the soldier dying in battle. That like thematically, it made sense to me.
I really always thought he was going to go back in time. It just feels like that needed to happen.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily think Iron Man was going to cop it. Retrospectively, it feels just obvious with the way that Doctor Strange saved his life, and it's like, no, you need to die a different day.
Oh, and he looks at Doctor Strange and he puts up the
one way this is going to end.
Man, like, I was just like, holy fuck, it's happening.
Yeah,
It's
and it makes
happening.
sense as to like if I tell you how we win, then we won't do it. Like,
So let's not quickly just skim over the biggest battle ever put to screen.
well, that's kind of what I
In
wanted
terms
to
of
get back
actual
to. Like,
characters.
Can we also just
I was-
pre the biggest battle of all time? I just want to quickly just mention for the 18th time in this review, Thanos felt dangerous. He felt visceral, like when he's
almost
taking
felt
chunks
unhinged
out
in
of
this.
Steve Rogers' shield. I was like, this guy, like, how the fuck are they going to stop him? He is insanely powerful. He's hell-bent on winning. This is just perfect for conflict, you know?
Good thing for him that Thor got real fat. Because end of Infinity War, Thor could have fucking wiped the floor with him.
well, yeah, maybe.
I mean, he could
kinda
with
came
the
out of
Infinity
nowhere.
Gauntlet version. I assume the one without the
Yeah.
Infinity Gauntlet, he could have done pretty well.
Yeah. Sorry, I just kind of got distracted in my own brain. So
The possibilities.
all right, so him.
I'm just imagining his Homer, like Disney cartoon.
Seriously,
Yeah.
it kind of is. Captain America standing alone against Thanos, and like him just saying, "I'm going to wipe the
armies.
fucking floor with you." Such a cool, like, just visually an awesome scene. But
And nihilistic as well. I love that.
But that moment where everyone from the MCU starts coming through those doors was this, like, that was a chills moment. That was like just me kind of going, like, brain can't handle
That was the
what's
big
happening right
So
now.
cathartic, and I was very nervous about how they would do that, and I can't think of a better way to do it.
And this is kind of what I meant by, like, it feels meta and it feels like a letter to the fans, which is that they just basically took the entirety of the MCU and was just like, this is everyone. This is everyone at their peak performance. This is how we're going to do it.
And it did feel a bit like, hey, remember the movie Black Panther and how much you love that? Here's Black Panther.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, fuck
And
yeah.
he's going to do shit.
Now, I was not at all disappointed by this scene. It was very rousing and amazing. I honestly, in part, expected like Daredevil or someone to show up.
Yeah.
Jessica Jones.
because
it was everyone.
Because I mentioned earlier that Natalie Portman was the second biggest surprise cameo to me, because the biggest one was a scene that we've actually skipped here with Howard Stark, Jarvis, his butler,
Yeah.
who is a main character from Agent Carter, the TV series.
Okay.
Oh, really?
This is one of the only acknowledgements of the TV universe
Right.
by
Oh,
any
no
of
way.
these movies. I would say the only time they've ever incorporated
That's an
anything
AMC show,
solely
right?
from the TV shows. That would be ABC.
ABC, sorry.
Yeah. And that for me was like the most holy shit moment in probably this whole movie. It was a Red Skull moment from the last film. I was like, holy fuck, Jarvis from Agent Carter is in this fucking movie. So I thought anything was possible after that wasn't meant to be.
No, that entire scene, like just when they have everyone, like they did an Age of Ultron thing where they're all just kind of about to. I thought that was spectacular. Like it was such a jumble to the eyes. Like visually, it was like, oh fuck, what's going on? But just kind of like that, it felt like I said, like a letter to the fans. Like
it felt like a kid with all these action figures in their toy chest, and they're just like in the sand pit, and they just play like. It felt like this hodgepodge, brilliant mess of all these people that we've seen over the years, and it worked. It worked so well.
It really did.
I mean,
I feel like
it was a good battle sequence. Like
shout on the Battle of Wakanda
for sure.
Both of them.
All right, so there's a couple of scenes that I want to talk about in this particular part. The introduction of Captain Marvel.
Yep, reintroduction.
I said in my non-spoiler review that I was a little bit suspect about how she was incorporated into this film. Didn't quite feel as good. Like that felt too opportune. Like her just showing up at that point and then just that easily dealing with that ship. Like I feel
like that's right in line with what we saw in Infinity War and Captain Marvel.
It's certainly in line with what we saw in Captain Marvel. What in Infinity War?
Infinity War, when Thor shows up to the battlefield, and I feel like represents that level of power
for
as well.
those smaller ships, yeah.
I think initially when that was happening, and they were like, "Oh, they're missiles. The guns turrets are pointing that way. What's happening?" Immediately, I knew it was Captain Marvel.
I had no idea.
And
then, did I.
Well, that's a first.
I thought it was going to be.
I guessed something, and you guys didn't.
I thought it was going to be some big ship, like a
completely forgotten about
it. I picked that
it
immediately, and then I was kind of like disappointed. Initially, I was a bit disappointed, and then she came through, and they didn't overuse her. Like it was still back to Steve Rogers. It was still back to Tony Stark.
And I liked that.
And that was my concern. Was Captain Marvel going to be the hero at the end of the day? And she wasn't. She assisted, no doubt. But it still wasn't all on her. It was still on the main heroes.
And I thought she had one of my favorite moments in the entire battle, which was Thanos headbutting her and her just not flinching.
And I didn't mind the new hairdo.
No,
I didn't.
That's fine. Like that's just kind of style choice. But I'm glad that moment wasn't stolen away from the older heroes. Like I needed that arc. I needed that kind of completion. I needed it to be Cap and Iron Man and Thor really.
I'm with you.
Versus Thanos, and I think that they did a decent job of kind of showing how she didn't beat Thanos. I thought it was a bit weird, but I was like, I'm just glad that didn't happen because that would have felt like such a stolen moment.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, so I think she was in there enough to where her powers and how overpowered she was still justified.
Yeah,
but it was squarely on our main six kind of cohort.
This is what I'm just trying to think. Where was she the entire film?
She says that line where it's like there's heaps of shit going on in the universe. It's not all about Earth. I assumed that she was just off doing.
I get that they use that once, right? They use that excuse once.
Yep.
Earth is not the only area. I don't like that they use it again. It just sending her off on like.
But she didn't mention that. I think it's just implied.
No, she said that
again.
Well, she said there's a lot of shit that's happening on Earth.
She said that at the beginning, everywhere. But did she say that the second time?
Yeah, she said this stuff is happening all over the universe. I gotta help them as well.
No. So did that you're referencing the scene at the beginning of the film when she says that? Yes.
No, there's two scenes.
There's two scenes when that happens.
Yeah,
right.
First
okay.
one she goes.
That's what I'm clarifying.
Yeah, and then when she's in the hologram, she says, "I've got to go help shit out."
But that's still at the front end of the movie. We're not talking about
that's the
here.
excuse of why she isn't there the entire
She says
film.
you may not see me for a while.
Yeah. I don't like that. I don't like the fact that like when the Russo brothers said we're going to deal with her power discrepancy, I thought that they were going to like deal with it, not just be like, oh, she's somewhere else. That to me is I didn't like the way that was incorporated.
Don't you feel like that's always been a systematic problem with the MCU? Why wasn't this guy here? Why wasn't that guy there?
I love the way that they excused it previously. Like that makes sense. But in this case, in my mind, I was thinking like, oh, maybe because she's going up against the Space Stone or something like that, it means that she won't be more powerful than Thanos with the gauntlet, like, or something like that. Like that would have made sense to me, or I don't know. But like at any rate, the fact that she kind of showed up at that opportune moment and then like the enormity of her powers weren't really contended with, that kind of bothered me.
I don't know. I thought she was balanced as well as any other character. Like, he still gets the best of her at the end.
He does.
But he flings her.
I thought a worse example of that was Doctor Strange, who got completely sidelined.
He did.
Just holding back water for the entire battle. I'm like, Doc, just let it in and come help, mate.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Please.
It's all good, Doc.
He's like, no, I got to make this tornado.
Yeah.
But I guess he knew what was going on. So
the weird ththing about that is it like that look of the water spinning reminded me of what Mysterio is doing in Far From Home. I was like, ooh. That's exactly what I did in the cinema.
You had another couple moments from this, did you say?
There's going to be a moment that a lot of people are going to hate, but I quite enjoyed, which was the women of the MCU.
Oh man,
that moment.
You fucking soy boy cuck. I can't believe
you soy
I knew you'd be completely on board with this.
I like it.
Propaganda.
This feminist crap.
I loved it.
Honestly, man, I couldn't have I fucking wanted to throw my fist in the air. I was
loved
like, this
it.
is sick.
That was absolutely my fist pumping moment of the whole movie. I don't know why exactly. I just love the way that they just kept gathering and it's like, fuck.
It was like, oh fuck, there's a ton of them, aren't there? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like it just makes sense in that they have been adding a larger and larger roster of women into the MCU, and it was a nice little kind of. They had a bit of a nod to it in Infinity War, where it's just the three of them, and in this one they're like, hey, there's actually a shitload of them.
In a weird way, it was like a funny kind of way to show of how many just heroes in general there are, because we know that the minority of them by far are women, and you see there's this many women heroes.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, there must be a fucking lot of heroes.
Yeah, it's a reminder of how many there were. I was like, oh, there's that, and she's from that, and wow, there's actually a big roster of female superheroes.
Spider-Man was right in the middle of them. Go get it, Spidey.
Yeah. Like there's a lot of people that aren't going to like that.
Totally, and it's 30 seconds of the whole film, so
not even. It's
they
like
just
a 20, 15 seconds, like half of that. Like
they need to chill out a bit.
And just shout out to Valkyrie on that horse, on that unicorn.
I didn't quite like it.
I love
Pegasus,
that, man.
Yeah.
Like that just the tech stuff, the more cerebral Asgardian stuff, and how it, I don't know, it goes back to that kid in the sandpit.
The Ravages.
That to me,
Love
I didn't quite like the look of the execution of Pegasus.
It works well for me. Works really well.
Speaking of which, we haven't spoken about Spider-Man at all. He came back, and that I love watching other people in the cinema every time he shows up, and they're just like,
He's all right.
The Stark hug. Oh, this is nice.
yeah. That's such a good callback to Stark not hugging him.
Yeah.
It's Spider-Man, and then the fucking instant kill mode. That I lost my shit at that. That was such a good callback.
That's good.
Yeah.
God,
there's so much to the
gauntlet?
film.
Are we onto the Iron Man gauntlet part?
Well, his demise. His moment.
What?
Really.
Went to the
You've seen
bathroom
it 3 times, right?
3 times.
Yeah, I loved how they did the little misdirect of him. Like, I don't know how Thanos just didn't realize that he didn't have any stones left.
Yeah,
but
that's filmmaking. That's the visuals. Storytelling. That's show don't tell. Like, I love that.
I did love his final lines. Like, I'm always interested to see this. I recently rewatched Blade Runner. And I was
Blade Runner 1?
Yeah. And was talking to someone about that death soliloquy, which is kind of referred to as the greatest death soliloquy on film ever.
Really?
And trying to think about what defines good last words, or like how do you pick that? How do you really like bring something together and in that
I
moment?
think you'll find his last words were, "Hey Pep."
No, I'm just kind of talking about the "I am Iron Man" thing, and in response to his "I am," what was it? I am
inevitable.
I am inevitable.
Yeah.
And his "I am Iron Man," which is such a cool callback to the end of the first film of him going, I am Iron Man.
I know I've said I just loved that like 80 times this review, but I was like, he's fucking cooked. Tony Stark is done.
Oh, you knew as soon as he was like, as soon as he
literally
had the things on his hands, you were like, oh, he's dead. In fact, you knew even earlier than that when old mate did his like one thing.
Yeah.
Like Doctor Strange was like one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
You're
like, is the suit
oh,
channeling all
no.
that power? Then you see it crawling up his neck. He's like, oh.
Oh no.
When he was like, I am inevitable, and he was like, I so sincerely thought he was going to be like, I don't fucking care.
Yeah.
I really thought he was going to drop the first F-bomb in the MCU.
Yeah. It was like, oh, I had something for this, and then like click.
He's like, get fucked. No, that was poetic. Like tying in the first movie to the 22nd movie. Like I couldn't have asked for a better way for Tony Stark to go out.
Well, it's the
And that's-
second movie tying into the 22nd movie, I suppose. No, Hulk was after that. Never mind. Sorry, ignore me.
And that's when I like that scene as it started to unfold more, and when Pepper Potts comes in, like that's when the tears, like I was starting. I wasn't like
not for
weeping.
Spidey?
No. It was when Pepper Potts came in, and I was like, all right. You know, I'm not like bawling my eyes out, but a few tears are coming. You know,
Dude,
and
this-
that's when I
this-
was like, I really care about these characters. I really love this cinematic
Yeah.
universe. I mean, it means a lot to me.
And she was really understated in that scene as well. I thought
Yeah.
it was really.
I
nice.
was. I think she had just come to the terms with the fact that she's going to lose him, like not of a natural death type thing. That's the impression that I got. Like she was just like, I knew this was going to happen.
Just to dial back 1 second, how fucking cool was seeing her and Tony like flying around
Oh, yeah.
together, just
Yeah, no,
blasting
that was
lasers.
great. Finally,
That was good.
Yeah.
Great moment for them to
This is
have.
the Iron Man 3.
Yeah,
No,
that-
I thought like it went against expectations. As I said, I thought Steve Rogers was going to die.
Yeah.
And I thought Iron Man had already had his final moment. Like he almost fucking perished in Infinity War.
So if he had died in Infinity War, do you reckon that would have been better or worse? Like a better or worse death?
I think it would have been worse because I loved the callbacks to Civil War in this. I love the arc
Yeah.
of Tony Stark
Oh
in
no,
this.
in terms of like the storyline, yes, but just as like a scene.
Too dark.
It might have been like, it might have even raised the stakes even more for Endgame if someone like Tony Stark
No,
had
I'm
gone.
not asking about what would do. I mean that specific scene, him dying. Which do you think would like? What is the better scene if he had died?
Oh.
in
I would say
Infinity
this.
War?
I just think that would have been too fucked up. That would have been
Too
some
dark.
Game of Thrones shit. Yeah, that would have like that movie already has a dark as fuck ending. Like I think that would have been too much, and then
Yeah.
this movie would have had way too much heavy lifting to do.
Yeah, I think as a scene, I thought that was such a perfect moment. Like, because I was absolutely convinced when I was watching Infinity War that this Tony Stark is done. Like he's fucked.
Oh, that had more impact
Yeah.
for me than this one. Definitely.
As like something that just kind of like
When he-
jolts you on the inside.
Because
when
I don't
he
think we've
fucking
seen him in
stabs
that kind of perilous, you know, we've never seen him like have a knife gorge through half of his abdomen.
Oh, don't
you know.
forget when he fought Whiplash, though.
Oh, mate.
That was
Oh,
the other
mate.
big villain.
On the F1 track.
My bird. I want my bird.
Give me bird.
The I think just the
Fuck that movie.
visceralness of him being stabbed.
Yeah.
And just that scene where he's like lovingly talking to him, being like, "You will be remembered," like that kind of thing. That
Stroking his hair.
yeah, that made it like for me. That scene was more like impactful. I like the storyline of it. I like the conclusion or like the way that it kind of brings together the story more. And obviously, like seeing Endgame, I don't think it should have been done any other way. But that it's just annoying that scene that potential death scene was there, and I don't know if they quite hit those heights in terms of impact.
No, I elicited an emotional response, and that for me was
100%.
enough to say, "Hey, you guys did the right thing." Yeah, but I know what you mean. They're handled in a different way, and I the fact when Thanos references, I know Tony Stark. There were some interesting elements to it,
Yeah.
a few layers to it.
Then off to the funeral we go. Amazing callback to the first film with the proof that Tony Stark has a
Yeah.
heart.
Love it.
Very sweet. And I think the thing that probably got me more emotional than anything else in the movie was just little Morgan Stark and Happy Hogan talking on the on the porch.
Yeah,
I mean,
Fuck,
I gotta
that
say,
was
throughout
sweet.
this entire film, I was an emotional wreck.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was tough.
yeah, especially that back half. Yeah,
Yeah. Pretty much everything from Vormir onwards, I think.
nice to see
Just kidding.
Happy Hogan in this as well because his
Definitely.
scene got deleted from Infinity War, and
Yeah,
he's
that's
just-
right. Yeah.
He's a fun character.
And Nick Fury, not a line of dialogue in the film, nor technically in the last one, really.
Yeah.
Well, the
That's because there's a post-credit scene,
it's still a
um,
movie.
it's its own movie.
yeah, really kind of it felt a little bit like there was like 6 endings. Like Thanos died and then there was like another 20, 30 minutes left of the film. And that was real fan service. That was like, here's what's happening to your characters. This is where all the shields, metaphorically and physically, were being passed off to new characters. The three main characters were kind of brushing off. Thor hands it over to Tess Thompson, who's potentially going to become the new Thor.
Fuck yeah.
So good. Thor 4 is on the way, motherfuckers. I have no doubt in my
Taika Waititi apparently pitched it to Marvel last
I've heard
week.
that as well.
I don't know that they should call it Thor, though.
I reckon make it Thor, give it to Tessa Thompson, and have as Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah,
do that too.
Do them all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go nuts.
I almost kind of hoped that they would have just left Thor on it, like for him to go on his own, because there could have been that really brilliant moment 5 years later, 10 movies later, where
he's almost back in shape.
Yeah. But that they need help from someone. Who can we turn to? And then like out of the darkness, like steps out Thor. Like that could be such a cool fucking.
He's back.
Yeah, like that would be such a fist pump moment.
Yeah.
I want to see more Thor, man. I think they've really they actually starting to really nail that character. And it has been a bit of a ramp up into it. So I want to see more.
Yeah. And finally the fate, and we've talked about this quite a bit, but the fate of Captain America.
How did you guys feel? I'm first question, face makeup.
That was
happy?
A lot of that was CGI.
Happy?
I thought he looked great. I think that was an actual old person, a double with his face put on it.
Oh, for real?
I think so.
Maybe.
I don't know, because that's what they did with Peggy Carter years ago.
Really?
That was really unseemly. I did not like that at all. Because you could tell half her face was CGI, half her face was makeup, and that was very unnerving. I thought
it was like they would have done prosthetics similar to Prometheus, that kind of look, but then they've gone in digitally and made it, smoothed it out a bit.
Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely not whatever they did in Prometheus, because that was horrendous.
Yeah.
But I thought it looked great, and I thought his performance was terrific. And like he looked like an old dude. He had that real Clint Eastwood, like that. This old dude would fuck you up.
100%.
That in and of itself provides for me the biggest plot hole in this entire film, because everything that they changed in the past you can attribute to a separate timeline. The only thing you can't attribute to a separate timeline is that, because he shows up in this timeline.
I think it's what we discussed, though. I just think he was there the whole time. Like I'm perfectly happy to kind of put it to
but
bed
again,
like that.
There's too many big holes on how that wouldn't work, that can't work.
I think you could have all the fun in the world explaining them all away, though. I know I will.
I'd
like
love
what?
to do most
like
of
what,
it.
Though?
Well, for one thing, the fact that Thanos is dead in that reality
No,
before
but
he snaps his fingers. So unless half the population just magically snaps out of existence without the help of Thanos, then that doesn't make any sense. There's also the issue of him going back in time and obviously affecting things. That he would have to be with Peggy Carter for 80 years and not mention that Hydra is an issue. Or
you knew it all worked out.
I think those are all very valid points, but I can't say that I wasn't tearing up when they were dancing in that lounge room, and I was like, we've got this really nice dichotomy of Tony Stark sacrificing his life, but we've also had Captain America sacrificing his normality and his
his life is in the army, and this is the fight is done,
and now he's can get back to something like a normal existence, and he references Tony Stark mentioning that to him. I don't know, man. It just hit me in the feels, and I nobody was talking when the credits rolled.
Yeah,
nobody was saying everything. Everyone was just sitting there very passively, just taking it all in, and I think that speaks
sob every now
numbers on how effective that was.
Yeah, I would say that was the number one thing I wanted from this movie. So I got no issue with it. That's exactly.
No, I think that it provides a few too many, or just a major plot hole in my mind.
I don't think this film. I'm going to say in a couple of weeks' time, once we get a bunch of Reddit people, IMDb deconstructing the time mechanics, I don't think it's going to work out. I don't think they're going to. I think it's actually they've kind of thrown that out the door and sort of said, no, we're addressing the narrative of these characters.
Space magic, man.
And then that's the main theme of this film, and what I love about this film in comparison to Infinity War is like this theme of like responsibility, sacrifice of your life. You know, there's so many.
I still think that there's only one movie that's done time travel really, really, really well.
What's Up, Time Machine?
Yeah. No, it's
Primer.
Yeah, Primer.
Yep. That's what I was going to say. No,
It better have been, because you can't actually say anything else after we've said Primer. That's the correct answer.
Because that's not even a movie.
it's-
It's like a science.
It's a manual.
Yeah, it's a manual.
What am I trying to say?
Give us a hint.
Future Past.
Charades.
Days of Future Past.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. That's a controversial one.
Well, I mean, if you actually think about it, like they pan it out very easily. Like as soon as they let him out, all the events snap into reality.
I completely agree with you for once. But that's a very controversial one that we do not need to get into.
Probably.
But I
probably haven't thought about it too much.
No, I completely. Oh, now that I've said I agree.
Yeah.
Also, we get the answer to who is the next Captain America.
Yep. Anthony Mackie taking on the mantle.
But is it going to be? Is it called Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or is it going to be called Captain America?
That's
and
what
the
they
Winter
said,
Soldier?
but
I think they're going to.
can
I think they're going to change
lie.
that up.
Yeah,
eh?
totally. Captain
Yeah.
America and the Winter Soldier. I initially
You've
thought,
been saying this for a long time that he's going to take the mantle.
well, no, I actually thought this series that was a fake name. I thought it was going to be called Captain America and Falcon. I thought it was going to go. I thought it was probably going to go the other way, just because Winter Soldier's a terrorist and his name probably wasn't going
But
to
we
be.
did. I've done a piece of content from a podcast, like a little video snippet for Facebook,
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah,
you were
absolutely,
talking
yeah.
about Falcon very
Yeah.
explicitly.
Well, he was my pick. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool. I still don't know exactly how I feel about the last scene where they find the old Steve Rogers and he's like, "Hey Falcon, go on." He's like, "No, Bucky's the come on, it's Bucky." But
No.
that's because that relationship has been so much more sold by the movies, even though Steve and Falcon would have a very comparable relationship, but we just haven't seen much of it.
Yeah.
They've had one movie together and then a bunch of stuff off screen.
Personally would have liked to have seen Winter Soldier take on the mantle of Captain America precisely because of the relationship that Steve and Bucky have. I think that's a beautiful kind of there's similarities there that makes a lot of sense.
But terrorist, so it is very easy to be like, yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah, no, like
Probably shouldn't,
that
probably
part
shouldn't
makes
be
a lot
that guy.
of sense.
International, well-known terrorist. Winter Soldier.
One of the interesting things is who's going to take on the mantle of Iron Man. It's either going to be Potts or
Morgan Stark.
Sorry,
Morgan Stark.
Morgan Stark.
I think Shuri.
possibly.
I don't know if that's a possibility at all.
Actually, Black Panther down the line, but yeah, that could be one.
That would be so cool. Because isn't there Iron Heart?
Mm.
And yeah, she could take on the mantle of Iron Heart.
Riri
So-
Williams. I think.
Yeah. How
How is it not Iron Maiden? Come on.
Yeah.
It really brings up a lot of questions around what Phase 4 is going to look like.
TV shows. That's what it's going to
Lot
look
of
like.
TV shows.
I
I was very surprised at the lack of any reference to Vision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, at least in terms of what they were going to do with him. Like, we know the show's called WandaVision. I believe he's back for it. I don't know when it's going to be set.
But I mean, when you think about it, they kind of need the Soul Stone to get him back.
well, not necessarily based on what they said from the last film.
Yeah, true.
That's only a
what-
component of
all
him.
right, I'm going to
He's-
give a prediction, I suppose, is that he's going to come back, but it's going to be him as, I guess, as Jarvis, without the Soul Stone, which means he's not going to have any of his powers. He's just going to be a normal person.
I mean, he'll still be a vibranium android, which
Yeah, I
is
suppose.
pretty badass powers in there, probably. But yeah, I was just actually surprised. I really thought Shuri was going to rebuild him.
I thought that white vision from the Infinity Gauntlet. I'm pretty sure it's in the Infinity Gauntlet comic. Was going to make an appearance. I also thought, doesn't Nebula grab it in the? I'm surprised
yeah.
they didn't go down that path
I
as
definitely
well.
thought it was going to go one of the two
Yeah.
Nebulas doing that.
I thought that was going to happen for sure.
Mm.
Wow.
Wowee.
Any
Are there,
no post credit scene?
No, not at all.
I'm kind of glad.
Just a little ting 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 at the very end of the credits.
Yeah.
And
I
that
thought
cool
that was
little
very.
signature.
I think that was a good restraint on their part of being like, this is a closure to a
Yeah.
well, really kind of.
We've got enough here to propel the next phase. We know we've got the passing of the mantle of Captain America and
Yeah, it would have been a bit funny if they had a Shang-Chi, the Master of Kung Fu tag at the end of this one.
but then it is the definitive ending of this Infinity War saga, so I like that.
No, Spider-Man.
Oh yeah, fuck that.
It's the Infinity Saga.
Okay, here's a nitpick for you.
Or
Ned is like he should have a fuck off beard
he got
and
snapped as well.
So if you want to nitpick,
exactly.
here's one thing.
Gotcha.
Do the people that are snapped come back the same age as the people that
They're living.
weren't snapped?
They're.
No, they come back as they had
As
died.
they were when they
How did
snapped?
you know Ned? How do you know Ned got dusted?
Because he was the same age as Peter still.
Well, yeah, exactly.
So you just inferred that.
but presumably,
yeah.
Because they didn't tell me that, so I didn't realize that happened.
Well,
so I got angry.
how much did they have to tell you?
when they were talking, he was doing a bit of like it kind of gave the impression like, hey, we're back.
Okay, that makes sense.
We're humans
Sure.
again. Yeah.
Cool.
But that really freaks me out because, like, in my head, like that's going to have huge consequences because, like,
Older brothers just became younger brothers.
Yeah, like people have just lost 5 years of life. Like
You want to
that.
get into it. What about all the people who were like dusted off planes? When they come back, are they still where they left off in the air? Because they are fucked. Like, there are so
What
many
the
questions
fuck
from
is
these
happening?
two movies that we will never know unless all
Yeah.
these TV shows
There's a
really
bunch of
get
people that
into
are on
it.
boats and are suddenly swimming. Like, the fuck?
Because we've got 2 seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that are presumably going to be set in this 5 years. I want to know if they do any of this.
You know what that's
stuff.
going to be like though, because like if it's as if no time has passed for the people that have been dusted, it's as if you're just flying and then the plane disappears with like half the people all along it.
Mm.
Like no
It's like
time
the
has changed in
Langoliers.
your mind.
Mm.
Like suddenly you're like, I mean, if you're driving and then suddenly what, you're in the middle of a like
Just skidding across the road. Where'd my
the fuck.
You know what? I don't have a problem with the time travel mechanics in here, but I kind of wish they'd gone down the multiverse. So I wish there was like parallel timelines existing. I think that would have been really cool because then instead of it being the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's the Marvel Multiverse.
They'll get there, don't you worry.
And you've got like, and that's what I loved about X-Men and the X-Men cartoon in the 90s. It's like you had this fucked up dystopian version, you had this version, you had that version. It's like you can explore these characters in different scenarios that it retains your interest.
I give it 10 years before the Fantastic Four pull bloody other dimension Tony Stark out of a wormhole and enlist him to do something.
Man. Anything else we want to touch on, fellas?
Were there any characters who didn't show up who you would have liked to have seen?
Would
I know
like to
this
see
movie
Vision.
has every fucking thing in the world.
I can't even think.
I was just trying to run through my head of like major characters in the MCU who had no part in this. Baron Mordo was one. Chiwetel Ejiofor from Doctor Strange. I don't know if we'll ever see him again. Maybe Doctor Strange 2, but yeah, I don't know. There was just so many surprise characters, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm really keen for Doctor Strange 2 after this.
Bloody Ruffalo dropped that Tilda Swinton was in this, I believe.
Oh, did he?
Yeah,
Yeah.
really. I liked that scene.
Ruffalo, back to his antics.
I know. This was like 2 years ago. He was like, man, it's so great to work with Tilda Swinton. And everyone was like, shut the fuck up, Ruffalo. No one's meant to know that. You weren't in Doctor Strange, idiot.
Fucking Ruffalo. Who would I have expected to be in this? I don't know.
Ultron? I would like to see
God, I can't even think anymore. Vision, I think, is the notable
Vision's the sure.
thing. Also, something very interesting for as Guardians of the Galaxy. There's that scene where Gamora is obviously on the run, so she's
that was left very unaddressed. Like I was half thinking,
well, she did kick him in the balls, and then
and then
I love that line. It was like him or a tree.
I was half thinking maybe she got snapped, like Tony got rid of everyone who came in from the past, like them with him. But no, like Peter's searching for her, so presumably she's out there somewhere, I guess. But yeah, I guess Guardians of the Galaxy 3, we'll find out.
I hope they do as Guardians of the Galaxy because I really like that scene.
Yeah, it is fun.
Of course. Like he repeated that line a few times, and then on the last one, everyone's just like
cheeky smile. Fuck.
Hemsworth, man, I'm banking. I'm banking that guy to go on to something really cool. I fucking hope so, man.
I'm gonna say Men in Black International sends him running right back to the MCU.
Probably. Well, I'm sure that, and like, if we've missed anything here, I'm sure we'll address it on next week's show, or we can even do like sort of post
1 week on.
Yeah.
5 days later.
Yeah. We should also actually look back at our old 9 theories of Infinity War and readdress those and see what we did get right, what we didn't get right. So hopefully get some more
I'm gonna listen to that tonight.
Endgame content out for you guys. Anything else? Any final little tidbits? We're sitting at 1:29 here. 1 hour 29.
I can't wait to sleep. Let's not hit 1:30. I won't have it.
You've got 2 seconds.
Bye. Yeah, I think that's got to be like. I mean, I just can't even think anymore. There's so much in this film.
Yeah.
I know we have skipped, God, so much stuff that I will be kicking myself as soon as we get off the mics.
Oh, you know what we didn't talk about? The CGI helmets. The CGI helmets. That is a nitpick.
Great.
A nitpick for me.
Nitpick. Never worse than that first scene of Ant-Man in that test suit with Hulk, and his head's just kind of floating around his body a bit. They'll never get that right as long as the MCU lives.
Why?
Sure
Why do
Floating
that?
head
Why
shit.
don't you have a
Physical helmet.
physical helmet?
Or just the suits I think were CGI too. I don't know.
The suits worked. The suits looked photorealistic.
Yes.
There was nothing in there where I was like, that's not a CG.
I thought you could still see the seam though, in between head and body, especially when they move around a lot.
There we go. Helmets, guys. That's our final thought on Endgame.
Yeah.
We'll be back next week for the weekly show. And hopefully we find something else to fill this void in our lives after Endgame, because I'm going to be an empty husk of a man. That's for sure. See you next week, Connor.
See ya.
See you next week, Benny. See ya.